So in this topic, we're going to talk about Azure Security Center and how you can use that as you're deploying your resources and have that tell you how you might be able to secure your resources in the future. So Kel, if you could tell us a little bit more about Azure Security Center.
Sure. So this offering is something relatively new. I believe it's still in preview at this stage, but basically what this is like what Ed said, it's really around allowing you kind of a single console or single pane of glass to come in and kind of gauge your health of your Azure resources from a security point of view. And really, it's an agent-based technology, but it's actually got a lot of neat features to help you kind of manage your infrastructure as well as actually make recommendations for you. I think it's kind of one of the key ideas around this. And if we could basically just step through what we're talking about here, we essentially have a lot of different resources that we provisioned out there in Azure, right? So let's say we have a bunch of VMs out here. We have some storage accounts. Maybe we have some web apps. So we have all these different resources out there. But the ASE is really centered around the IaaS components right now. It can do some other things, and I'll show you that actually some of the stuff that I have provisioned up there are showing like SQL database. So it'll actually show like the Azure SQL database, some guidance around that stuff. But think about it from this point of view, we're basically looking at your infrastructure inside Azure. So from this sense, we basically have this big module over here called ASM, which has a provider model for plugins. So we have like third parties who are building stuff as well as some things that we have native inside Azure that will basically be able to do scans and give you kind of some feedback back about your infrastructure. So if we pop over to the portal, what we're looking at again, to find this, if you go under Browse here and look for Security Center, I have it pinned here. When you go into Security Center, by default, it's going to go ahead and show you what's going on inside your provisioned resources for that subscription right now. So you can see right here that we have three things that are showing up here. Some of them are semi-healthy or a little bit healthy, and some of them are red, meaning that they need attention. If we go into those recommendations, you can see that some of the stuff I had provisioned out here earlier, like SQL servers. So these are Azure SQL databases. This is saying you should enable auditing on your SQL server, just like kind of a best practice around when things are going on with your database. You want to make sure that you have auditing turned on so you can see it. And what's interesting is because that's a first-class component inside Azure, we can give you guidance and actually direct you right to the pane to say, I want to turn this on. So instead of you having to go back out and look for that SQL server in your Azure tenant, in your subscription, and enabling all these settings, we do it right here from a single click. The idea is to basically, we're going to be, it'll extend to like third-party stuff too. So let's say you had a web application running out there with no firewall on it. Maybe one of the recommendations would go back and say, hey, this is running on non-SSL and it's exposed to the internet. You should probably put a firewall in front of that. And here's three third parties that build WAFs that run inside of Azure or web application firewalls. So those are just some of the things. You can see right here, disk encryption. So these are some of the PaaS components. You can see it's targeting mostly SQL Server right now. So it's telling you should enable transparent data encryption, auditing, and some endpoint protection. But if you look at the virtual machines here, you can see that we get things like disk encryption. So it's actually making recommendations that we should enable disk encryption so that we can maintain, some sort of control over our disks up there to make sure that they're not being tampered with, the underlying disk infrastructure. So you can do that stuff, and it'll automatically, by default, grab stuff that's out there in your thing and show you all this telemetry around what recommendations you can make. You can see partner solutions here right now. Mine, for instance, doesn't show anything right now. I don't have like websites and stuff deployed, but some of that stuff would show up there. You can also control your policy. So by default, the policy is to turn on data collection. And what does that mean? That means that we're going to go ahead and anything that this thing can reach out to, whether it's a SQL database or an IaaS VM, in this case, it can actually reach out and provision an agent. So all this data that's coming back here from these virtual machines is actually coming back through that agent that it deployed on the box. I didn't have to do anything. Once I set this policy up, what happens is if you have your DevOps team or whoever's managing your infrastructure start spinning up a bunch of VMs, they don't have to add a bunch of stuff to their scripts to say, oh, let's go ahead and make sure we install these other pieces so that we can maintain control of it. this is a policy you can put at kind of a higher level of your subscription so that the security admins know for sure that things are being monitored from a security sense. And so that's this is still in preview. We also have some exports to Power BI to be able to, I don't have this one turned on right now, but when you export to Power BI, it's just a dashboard. Again, if you have a ton of infrastructure in here, if you have hundreds of VMs, as well as SQL servers and all these different components, when you have those all up there, it's kind of hard to manage through the portal, right? It'd be nice if we could have roll-ups and some sort of aggregation, and that's what Power BI brings to the table there. So that we'll walk you through, basically enabling that to do some sort of deeper analytics on your security infrastructure. And that wraps the module on Azure Security Center.